Hello there, and welcome to this episode of how to create engaging content that your participants will love and love you for is a focus on the nuanced side of creating visual design that's as engaging as your content is. So if you are coming to me from the Content Design Lab and you've already gotten the knowledge that you needed around how to create highly engaging content, welcome back to the second piece. If that is information that you still need, please, somewhere in the links below, you should be able to find access to a complimentary version of the content design framework. And as a matter of fact, I love to show this because in that you get the framework itself, which I don't have a copy of here, but as you can see, it's the planner that follows that framework that I use before everything that I teach. So if we haven't met yet, hello, I'm Susan Gaddy, and I'm here to give you some 3 simple but highly effective tips and strategies for using visuals to give your content that already has the juice to create serious impact and transformation, the extra little sizzle that it needs. Because here's a really interesting thing for you to know is that while we might be super, super proud of our content, it's actually not what ultimately attracts people to it to begin with. And I want to just illustrate this with a quick story. So back in the day, I was the global head of service for W Hotels. So I was responsible for all the training that happened in every single hotel when it came to service, which was a huge deal for W Hotels. It's a part of Starwood division. And we created, I can't even say we, because at the time I really didn't even understand much of what was happening in this arena. But I worked for an amazing visionary HR director who did. Her name was Carolyn Jones, and she designed this curriculum around emotional connection in service training. And to me, it was always kind of like really basic. I'm like, seriously, people don't know this? And again, it's not that they don't know it, it's that they don't know how to implement it. And what she was doing was connecting to people emotionally. So she threw out everything that was true of typical training at the time. And what we created was a dream book instead of a workbook. And that dream book was filled with gorgeous images. It was the first time I ever had a marketing department actually give us the time in the training department to have our materials made. It was sort of the first time I found out that, wow, when my ideas combined with their ability to make them look beautiful really brought everything to life for me. So long story short, made this amazing book. It didn't look like anything that anyone had ever seen before. And it was really centered around creating an emotional connection. And it did its job because at the time, the head CEO of all of Starwood, which is a national global organization, got his hands on that book and he was running through our offices going, this is what we need. This is what we need. And that was the first time I realized just how important visual elements were for the things that we were creating. I'm good at PowerPoint. I'm good at a lot of things, but I got to tell you, I have developed a really strong graphic design team because when I give them my work, it skyrockets like crazy. So I don't always use them because sometimes content isn't developed far enough along that I want to make that investment. So I encourage you to be really smart about that too. There's a tool called Canva that I love that takes people like me that are good, right, and helps them to be even better. They make it simple. It's super inexpensive. Definitely check it out. It's called Canva, Canva. I use it religiously. But when I really want to add the sizzle like big time, I bring in my team. I've also made them available to all of you. So if you're in my ecosystem in any way, again, you should be able to find a link for how you could hire someone from my team to go ahead and really add some sizzle to your steak. So let's dive right in right now and get into the 3 things that you can do to help you actually create really amazing content that sizzles. I call it the sizzle with the steak. So I love to say this, get your pens ready because this is gold. These are the 3 principles that I use in everything that we create and that my design team and I have thought are the 3 biggest things that they do to really make that enhanced piece that you're looking for. Right? So if you've got your pens ready to go, I'm going to make myself tiny in the corner because I want to give all the real estate to this. I'm going to give you the three of these ideas. The first one is to make it interesting. So again, your visual eye is always the first thing that's attracted. And when we're used to seeing the same old thing, our eyes gloss right over it, right? Remember, we're being bombarded by stimuli all day long, and our brains are doing us a huge favor by shutting a lot of that out. So when you use an interesting image like this, right, first of all, there's like this hot pink background going on. Then we've got like these two pineapples. And all of a sudden you're like, well, what's happening here? Why is there a little one? Why is there a big one? How come, right? And it stops us. That's what we're looking to do with our visuals. We want to give our content a chance. So I want you to write down this key point right here. Give your content a chance by giving it an interesting perspective for other people to like take a second for their brains to expand a little bit, to stop, to focus in so they can pay attention a little bit more. So that's your first hack. Let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to put myself back down in the corner again. I love this one. It's the emotion. Okay, so if you've taken the content design lab, you know that the difference between most content and the content that I help people to create is that it's got heart and soul. And that means it's got emotional connection in it. It's stories that evoke some sort of emotion. Now, what's the emotion that this evokes in you, right? I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I wonder, why does she look like that, right? It looks like maybe she's running. What's happening there? Is this the end of her story, the beginning of her story? Remember, all we're trying to do is give someone's brain a chance to stop for a second so that they can lean a little bit more into your content. This could be a picture of a person laughing. This could be a picture of a person with a confused face, right? Anything that children, right? Laughing, like we want to know what's going on. How do we get into that emotion? So I picked this one. And again, these are all free images. Search the internet. There's great sites for this. You don't need a lot of context around it. You just need the image. So hack number 2, tip number 2 is, again, we don't need words and all the things. Like we've researched this over and over again. And one of the things that, our audience has told us what don't they like about presentations is the fact that I could read information for myself. What I need you to do is make some sense of it for me. So this is a perfect way to do that. All right. Are you ready for number 3? We're going to go ahead. We're going to move on. I'm going to make myself smaller. And number 3 is the story. And again, this kind of goes into exactly what I was saying before. The number one thing that we know from our participant research is that people hate when you read slides to them. Please stop reading your slides. We can do that for ourselves. Your goal is to make sense of things. Write that down. Your goal is not necessarily to give information. Remember, adult learners, they come preloaded. They're not elementary school kids, right, that don't have a lot of knowledge. They come with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. They do not need you to recite chapter and verse for them. It's actually the biggest deterrent to people showing up to training programs because they're boring, right? So come alive with stories. So this is a fun little, I'll make myself a little bit bigger. You can't actually see the whole thing on this, but I do really fun content on willing participant. And there are actually there's 5 levels of willing participants, but I don't tell you about those 5 levels. I made a great story about how do you get people to jump into a pool. It's the same thing, right? How do you get people through the process of change is the exact same reason or the exact same methodology for how do you get somebody to jump into a pool when they think maybe it's too cold or I don't want to get my hair wet or, all the other reasons that people wouldn't get in a pool in a given moment. So I tell it through the story. I had this image specifically made after I went through a bunch of iterations and found what I was looking for. This is probably, I would tell you, it took me 4 times teaching this particular content. So I had solidified this down so tightly that I could have an image like this created, and it was really impactful. It didn't start off like this. It was a simple chart when it started off. So that I want you to just, let that continue to kind of come through your mind, because the truth is you don't have to have the perfect first version. A lot of what I'm showing you came after many years of trial and error, right? That's why I'm able to stand up here and very easily and very quickly and in under 10 minutes walk you through 3 central elements. One of the things we teach in the Content Design Lab all the time is that it's not about how much information you give people. It's how good can you get at reducing it to the most important parts that you can capture someone's attention, bring them in with you, and send them off with the thing that they absolutely needed. So for those of you that are already with me in Content Design Lab, I hope these visual elements really help you and enhance the beautiful work that you've been doing in that program together. And if you're new to me or new to the Content Design Lab, then I want to remind you to get your complimentary version of the Disruptive Spark method, which is my content design method, because it's a game changer, right? It's not about the information that you have. It's about how do you up level all of it so that someone wants to jump in there with you and take that journey with you. And you can make these switches overnight. So I would be not following my own guidelines if I didn't leave you with the last part of every training. And this is the thing that everybody misses, is the summary. So I want to go back through really quick. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to switch my slides back through one more time. And I want to make sure you have every piece written down so you have it. First one was interesting. Remember, some sort of fun visual image that is completely unexpected. Number 2 is emotion. Laughter, joy, sorrow, sadness. Every emotion is an emotion, right? Use them all. Use them all. And the last one is storytelling. Please don't stand up in front of people and say, this is this, and this is this, and this is that. Nobody's sticking around for that anymore. We don't need it. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you one other little thing, is that 93% of recorded content goes unconsumed because of that. We do not need you to tell us everything chapter and verse. Get to the good stuff, right? Get to the good stuff. So there you have it. There's your summary. And the final step in my content framework is to give you an action to take, because information is great, but unless you're going to do something with it, what's the point? We're not in school, people. We're at work. We're in our lives where we want to, get ourselves to the next level, get our people to the next level. The only way to do that is to take some different action. So I want to remind you a couple of actions you can take. 1, get Canva. If you don't have it already, get Canva. And number 2, I want you to pick just one of these hacks that you can go back in the next 24 hours, because research shows if you don't do it now and start developing that muscle memory, you'll never do it. So challenge yourself. I want you to think of a piece of content right now that you have, a PowerPoint that maybe you've already created, a worksheet that you've already created, and how could you go in and pick one slide, take one principle, and do 10% better than it was before. That's it. You don't have to do massive amounts of work to really become the next best level in everything. Is simply to do 10% more than you did the day before. And when you look back over time, those 10%, they add up to big, huge numbers. Thanks for joining along in this episode. And I would love to connect with you. You can find me on all my social channels, either at mxidconsulting.com or the Disruptive Spark Academy. I'm Susan Gaddy, and thanks for joining in.